Howdy friends, it's Monday, kind of bored, not sure what to do with myself, so came out into the shop, turned the heat on, been messing with a couple things out here today. And I kind of just wanted to do a video about my little white garden tractors. The other one's out in the shed right now, that's where that one lives during the winter, but this one has been doing a fantastic job snow blowing this year. The one time that I've had to use it, we got about 6 or 8 inches. Other than that, the snow has been really mild this year. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, which is why I kind of picked this up and then that 3-point for the back of the Mitsubishi, but definitely haven't had a need for that yet this year. But this thing handled the 8 inches of snow with ease. There was no issues whatsoever. But just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown of what it is, where I got it from, and what I've all done to it. When I first bought the house that I'm living in right now, I was kind of just looking for something to mow my lawn with because I've got about 3.5 acres here that I cut. And I found the first one that I bought, which is the one out in the shed right now, and picked that one up with the 50-inch mower deck. And the guy that had it for sale also had a 60-inch deck for sale with it, and I'm kicking myself for not buying it. I should have bought that one too. But if I ever come across one of those again, I will. But anyway, it started out with that one being kind of the nicer of the two. So I've been using that for mowing in the summer and stuff like that. But it's kind of, the engine is sort of on its last leg. It burns about a quart of oil every time I cut the lawn. So right now I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to rebuild that one. And that one's got the Briggs and Stratton 16 horse opposed twin in it, the original engine. Rebuild kits for that one are like $130. I'm kind of thinking I might try to rebuild it, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, about 1.5 years ago, I saw this one for sale on Marketplace. And I think it was listed for like $250. And I went and looked at it, and it was in just horrible condition. It didn't look too bad from the outside, but the engine ended up having a broken connecting rod. And pretty much every seal on the rear end was, shot. It was oil everywhere. But it did come with the snowblower. So I ended up offering the guy like $150 for it. I think that's what I took it home for, was $150 with, the tractor and the blower. And I thought that was a halfway decent deal. And since then, I put out a couple videos on the channel of doing the engine swap in it and everything else. But once I started, or I should say, finished the engine swap and made sure everything was going to work, I kind of just finished it off from there and didn't film any of it. But I will throw in a picture or two here of what it looked like when I first picked it up, the tractor and the blower. And I think in the picture, this one is the one that's on the left, and the one that's out in the shed right now is on the right. But regardless, this is the worst looking of the pair at that time. So, since that engine that was originally in here was shot, which is now sitting over here under the bench, it's kind of just down there chilling in case I decide to rebuild the other one and need to pull any good parts off of that one yet. But when I had that Case 446, or when I bought that one, the guy that I bought that from gave me this 16 horsepower Vanguard as I guess kind of like a spare engine for the case. The one that was in there ran fine, but he just said, hey, you want this? And of course I wasn't going to leave it behind. Brought it home, went through it, made sure that it was going to run and everything. I think I changed the head gaskets in it and a couple other things. I do have a video of that on the channel. Me going through it, rebuilding it, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, yep, ended up swapping that one in here. And there were a couple things that I had to do to ensure that it was going to work, or you know, at least as to try and make it as similar to the original setup as possible, so I could still run all of the implements and everything off of the, I guess I'll call it a manual clutch, even though there's really no clutch involved. You can see all that it is you know, you've got the front stub shaft on the engine that's got the pulley on it, and then all there is you know, the spring, which is controlled by your PTO lever back there, which moves your idler pulley in and out, and you know, either puts tension on the belt and engages the implement, or you know, sits in its idling position. But in order to make sure that that was all going to be the same, I had to make sure I was going to have the same crankshaft height from the deck of the mower, or I guess, you know, where the engine mounts to, the frame of the mower, up to the center of the crankshaft. So I measured that out. This Vanguard ended up being, I think it was like 1 1/8 shorter than the opposed twin. So I had to weld up these, I guess, spacers, engine mounts, blocks, whatever you want to call them, to make sure it was going to have the same crankshaft height. And the other issue I had was this engine is narrower than the opposed twin. So I had an issue with the length of the drive shaft that goes from the engine back to the hydro pump on the transmission. So I ended up having to lengthen that. Grab a flashlight here real quick. So what I originally did was mocked the engine up with the pulley on the stub shaft aligned with the idler pulley to make sure I had the correct forward position. And then I did have to drill new holes in the frame of the mower to mount it there. So at that point I had the correct, I guess, you know, forward position, longitudinal position, whatever you want to call it. So then I measured the distance that I needed to mate up with the drive shaft then. And I think that ended up being about 2.5 inches. Try and get you a good shot there. There you can kind of see it. It wasn't the prettiest job in the world, but it definitely works. So I cut the shaft and then welded in a piece of rod that was the same size. And I mean, it's kind of an optical illusion there. Well, I guess it's, you know, it's not 100%, I guess, the same diameter all the way down there for me grinding off the welds, but it is straight. And how I did that was ended up just clamping the 3 pieces into a chunk of angle iron, and then just slowly tack welding them together. And then once, you know, they were solid, just full welded them. And that's held up great so far. The other big issue I had was with the gas tank mounted right there, and then the way that I had to route the exhaust. There was, you know, this was applying a lot of heat to the gas tank. So I made this aluminum heat shield to kind of, you know, create a little bit of a barrier there, and then wrapped the exhaust in header wrap. And all this is just gas piping from Menards that I just welded together. And so far that's worked great. No issues with it really. This was the original muffler that was on this engine. Just kind of, you know, re-engineered it, if you will. And then there's also a little outlet there, and this is just a cheap like thread-in muffler that you'd get for a little lawnmower. And with that combination, it's nice and quiet and it runs pretty well and everything, so no complaints there. I was able to keep the original throttle cable and lever on here. That works well now. It's a little bit stiff, but I mean, it's, I guess, to be honest, it gets a little bit more, I don't know, freed up the more I use it, because again, when I originally got the tractor, it was, everything on it was just rusty. So that being said, I did, once I had it all stripped down, pressure washed everything, took a wire wheel to the whole thing, and then painted it all. Same with the tins, you know, the rear fenders and the hood and everything else. And then same thing with the blower up here too. I did go through this, replaced a bunch of bushings and bearings, kind of rebuilt. I shouldn't say rebuilt, but I opened up this gearbox back here just to check everything. All the gears in there looked great. Replaced all the roll pins because obviously I had to knock those out to get the whole thing apart. What else did I do? And then just, you know, I had to make a gasket to seal it back up and then repack the whole thing with grease. And this thing's been happy so far. The one thing that I would like to do to it yet is fit the impellers, the ends of the impeller, with the same kind of rubber belt material that I put on the cutting edge. I did that with the case, and it seemed to throw the snow a little bit better, a little bit further. Not that this one's bad by any means. When you load it up, you get about 20 feet out of it, which is pretty good. And I will definitely think I'm going to try and wait to post this until we do get another snowstorm, just so you guys can see it in action. And I guess if we don't get a snowstorm, I'm just going to post it when I till the garden up in spring. And either way, you'll get a shot of the beast in action. Other than replacing the hydraulic hoses, I did have to replace all of the hydraulic hoses for the lift cylinder and everything. Other than doing that, I didn't really touch anything on the rear end, and I didn't really have to. I mean, I did replace the hydraulic filter. Oddly enough, this takes the same filter as the engine in my Jeep Grand Cherokee. Yeah, but other than that, didn't really have to do much to it. To the rear end, that is. These came from the factory set up for a 3-point hitch. Some of them came with the arms, some of them didn't. This one did not come with the arms, so I did have to weld those up myself. And again, I kind of just got the measurements, I guess for the triangle size for the Cat Zero 3-point hitch off the internet, and then just kind of made these to fit that. I picked up the I forget what these are called, but the ends off of Amazon. I think they were like $3 or $4 a piece, and then just picked up some stock from the hardware store. I think this might be like 3/8 by 2. Not 100% sure what size it is, but so yeah, in order to weld these up, like I said, just made the measurements, and I actually drew it out on top of my workbench and just used that as a guide, and then just notched these with a grinder, bent them, welded it in place, and then moved, got the length that I needed, made another notch, bent it, welded it, and that's, I just made 2 exactly the same, and then that's pretty much all you needed. So that works good. You'll see it in action. Tilling the garden. Heck, maybe if we get another snowstorm, I'll film that, and then I'll also film it tilling the garden. That way you can see, how versatile of a machine that it is. And I think what I'm going to end up doing with the other one out in the shed is I'll at least rebuild the engine. I might go through and redo the tins and everything on that one too. And then this summer I can use this one for mowing. I mean, I don't know what year it is, this one. But it is a true white, manufactured by White, not White Outdoors, which was owned by MTD. So I think it puts this one somewhere in the mid-70s as far as when it was manufactured. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Same with the other one. The other one is also a true, White Oliver garden tractor, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure if it was White Oliver back then or if it was just white, but other things that I did to it, I did put a new seat on it. Oh, yeah, this is probably the most important part. The lift cylinder, I replaced the seals on it, and it still just leaked like crazy. And I couldn't get it. I don't know if I didn't have the right size seals or what I was doing wrong, but I might try and take this one back to my hydraulic guy and see if he can get it rebuilt right. But for the time being, I ordered a universal cylinder off of Amazon. So anyway, I kind of had to modify the tabs on the end of the cylinder, on the ram on the front side, and on the back side to make sure that the bolts could go through the correct way. I don't know if that makes any sense. but in the original configuration, in order to bolt it in, the ports for the hoses would have been coming off of the side towards me instead of down where they needed to go. So I had to cut the tabs off of the ends and kind of rotate them 90 degrees and then weld them back on. But that ended up working just fine. Yeah, and other than that, just a quick coat of paint, and she's been working great. So next time I have a need to use it, I'll break the camera out and we'll get some shots of her in action. So it's a week or two later now, and we still haven't really gotten any significant snowfall, but we've gotten an inch or two here and there. That it's got to the point there's probably about 3.5 inches down in the driveway, and I'm kind of getting sick of driving over it. So I just want to take this and quick kind of run over everything and get it cleared off as much as I can. At least get my path to the woodshed cleared out and the stuff from the plow away from the end of the driveway. But nothing too significant. Definitely at the lower end of what I would even break this out for. But I figure it's a good opportunity to at least show you guys what it can do. And then, once we actually get a significant snowfall, whether it even be this year or next, I will definitely get that filmed and throw it up on the channel. But figure this is better than nothing. So let's get the old girl fired up and get the driveway cleaned off. So I've already checked the oil. She's good to go there. Plenty of fuel for what we're going to be doing. And the only thing that I haven't done to this yet, or one of the things that I haven't done to it yet, is run an actual choke cable from the engine to the dash. So I'm still just choking it right here at the engine to get it to fire up. And it doesn't really bother me, so I don't know if I'm going to change that up in the future or not. I might just leave it as it is, because to be honest, it works just fine. So make sure I got the parking brake set here so it doesn't take off on me. Got full choke, about half throttle, and she should fire right up.